Welcome to the Feeling Lighter podcast. I'm Coach Tyler here today with Dr. Lisa, as always.
Hi.
We have I'm gonna stop calling them solo episode. We have a duo episode here where we don't have a guest today, but we're going to talk about a subject that I think is really important to talk about because it's a subject that I think is it's this growing community of people who are realizing this old way isn't working and this new way is starting to grow. But if I'm honest, I think it's still really, really, really tiny still.
It is, yeah.
And so even though we swim in this and we bathe in this all day long at WeShape, as more and more people hear about this and as more and more people talk about this, and especially in social media land, it's going to spread more and more because the reality is the old way is not working. And what I'm talking about with the old way is that the way we are approaching our fitness by pressuring ourselves, judging ourselves, criticizing ourselves, and using that as motivation for fuel to try and convince us that we should go on the next diet or the next workout, it's not working. And when we do the diet, it's too freaking hard. When we do the workout, it's too freaking hard. And what happens? We quit, we fail, we get injured, we take one step forward, one step back, and we get stuck in that game that at WeShape we call the one step forward, one step back game, right? And I think it's such a vivid visual to see because so many people have done this. Everybody here has joined a challenge, done a diet, started a workout, got started on the right track. I'm going to put air quotes around that if you're listening. Yeah. And then, a month later, 2 months later, burned out and couldn't do anymore. Because the reality is life is always lifing around us. And that means we're not always going to have the ability to eat perfectly or have the perfect schedule so that we can always show up for our workouts in the exact same way. We might not always have the energy. We might get sick. Other things might happen in our lives, right? And so how do we start to show up for ourselves from a much different place? And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's all about this new soft era
of
fitness and soft. Is it soft core? Is that the
soft core, soft health,
core.
Soft fitness, soft whatever, right?
I'm here for it. Yeah, I think that, we live in this world, right? So I would say this. The term is a little misleading, right?
Yeah, soft is probably soft, the wrong term.
Yeah, it's almost giving I'm not going to work out. I'm just going to do finger curls or I'm just going to lie in bed.
Do nothing,
do nothing. It almost, and that is kind of probably the way that, diet culture wants us to feel about it so that we're more intrigued by their messaging.
Staying on their messaging.
Staying on their path. But I am very much here for a softer life in general.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before we started filming, this new soft girl era has become a thing where it's everything doesn't have to be hard. I don't have to be grinding for everything, my career, my family, my community. Some areas of life, it is so fulfilling to just take a deep breath and be able to relax into it and not make everything a fight. You know what I mean? If you work in a high stress environment, can only imagine making that transition to, a smaller company, a nonprofit, a startup, where it's okay, we can breathe. So as it relates to fitness, I am very much here for this soft core era, and I'm hoping that it continues to grow. So what does it look like for you?
I think this starts with the reprioritization of values. Right. It's funny. Yesterday, we were all talking about hustle culture, and someone on our team talked about somebody in Spain. Right. And they said in Spain, they don't think like this.
Yeah.
Right. They don't think that somebody we're out there. I'm going to be on this diet. I'm going to do this workout. I'm going to have this career. I'm going to show up as a parent. And I think people in other countries look at what we're doing here and they don't envy it and think to themselves, oh God, I wish I was burning the candle at both ends until I, slowly die from exhaustion and stress. They think to themselves, why are they doing that?
Right.
Why don't they take a little bit more spaciousness in their lives? Why don't they go a little bit slower? And I think for the longest time, the main value in our culture has been success.
Yeah.
Right? And for women, it's how do you look and what do you offer other people? And for men, it's how much money are you making and how big are your muscles?
Yeah.
Right? And those are the factors that people look at throughout social media to determine someone's worth or whether or not they should listen to them. Right. But at some point, I think we're starting to realize not everybody is going to be able to have this life, this body, this whatever, right? And also the amount of sacrifice that it takes to do that. And this isn't even necessarily positive sacrifice, right? A lot of the people that I've met in my life who are rich, who have incredible bodies, who have all the things that you think life is supposed to give you to be happy are miserable. Deeply miserable on the inside, right? And so the reprioritization of values is what starts the change.
Yeah.
If we can pause and say, instead of valuing how much money I'm going to make as my main thing I want to focus on, how about I value how much of an impact I can make on the lives around me, right? What would the world look like if we said to ourselves, okay, the most important thing to me is creating a positive impact on the people I touch throughout the day, right? Whether that's your kids, your community, your teachers, your work, your clients, whatever it may be, you can make a positive impact. And if you measure your worth by that, then guess what? You're going to make such a bigger impact on those people's lives. And you are going to feel so much happier as a result of it. And you can let go also of the self-imposed pressures of needing to keep up with the Joneses, right? Like I've been there, Lisa. Like I've been there like crazy. Like I was so insecure that I used that negativity to push me into having the body I wanted, into having the job and the success and all these different things I wanted. And I'll never forget, okay? I'll never forget this moment. One of the most important things to me a long time ago was having an Audi R8. Okay, this is like this supercar that Iron Man drove in the Marvel movies. Okay, and I will never forget. I bought an Audi R8, and I was driving it from over the hill in San Jose to here in Santa Cruz, and I pulled up in my driveway, and I turned it off, and I felt so empty inside, and it was this really huge moment of recognition that like nothing outside is going to make me happy. Like, I'm not going to be able to go buy like a Lamborghini next, or, you know, I have friends who bought jets and the only thing I heard them say was, oh, what about the next one, right? This is the hedonic treadmill that we get on, and we just think that more is always better. And that's not true for the success in your life. And I'm here to tell you that is not true for your fitness plan either. More does not mean better. Better means better. And so what does that mean when it comes to fitness? For me, feeling good in my body. If I do a workout and the next day I feel bad in my body, say my knee got agitated from it, I go back and I think, what did I do that there? I did too much. I didn't think I didn't do enough. I think I did too much, or I wasn't paying close enough attention to these movements or whatnot. And it turns out that the more we just treat our body from the place of, I'm going to go do a workout. Maybe it is a workout that's challenging for me that day. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's easy and just a lot of stretches. But at the end of it, do I feel better? Do I feel better? That should be the goalpost that we're looking after right there.
That should definitely be the new goalpost. And I think it's this whole idea of like soft core fitness and soft core health. It feels counterintuitive, right? Because we have been sort of conditioned to think that discipline looks a very specific way, that, you know, fitness is about pushing yourself harder and harder and harder. And the goal is to always, you know, create this upward trajectory. And I remember I actually talked about this on a social media channel, of this idea of like, there's nothing wrong with a plateau. Like, you can live in your plateau. You don't have to.
I think you said, I'm happy on my plateau. Happy on my plateau. Which is even better, right?
I don't have to figure out how to lift more or run faster. That's fine if you do. I think we all have seasons of our lives where that is a part of our fitness goal and our routine. But we never have to stay there. Like, we can always just live on our plateau. I get up and do, you know, a similar workout or have a similar level of resistance, and I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to meet the next goal, because what happens in every part of our lives, we don't spend time enjoying or appreciating the thing that we have worked for. We literally get the thing, and within 5 minutes, we say, what's next?
We raise the bar before we reach the bar, right?
And we think that raising the bar is making me, I'm a better version of myself. No, you are a more exhausted version of yourself. You are a more unsettled version of yourself. You are a less happier version of yourself, because you never appreciate where you are. You can never spend time being present in that moment and, you know, soaking up all the joy, the fun, the excitement, whatever. You just want to move to the next thing. So I did this great thing. Now what's next? And our culture, you know, kind of encourages this thinking, because even if you win an award or do something, it's like, well, what are you going to do next? You know, you wrote a great book. What's next? It's like, I don't know. I'm just going to sit and enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy the fruits of the labor that I put forth for this thing. And I'm not going to spend my life, you know, being anxious and trying to figure out what's next, what's after that. So this way of fitness for me is liberating, because now I don't feel like oh, I have to be, I don't even do trackers and stuff, but that's one of the things, this idea, like you're looking at your watch to try to see, or your Fitbit, and it's like, oh, I did this last time, or I was on a streak. Now I got, no, it's very distracting from, as you said, when you reorganize your priorities and decide what actually matters to you.
Yeah.
And for me right now, it's consistency. I just want to be consistent. I feel good when I am consistently moving my body, when I am challenging myself with like weights and body weight. I really like to challenge my strength because it was something I neglected for years because I was on that cardio wheel like most women in the 80s and 90s. So it's really important to me to just challenge myself and to try new things and to be consistent with some level of routine and finding movement throughout my day and life that doesn't have to be structured as a workout. So that's what soft core fitness looks like with me. It's like there's no stress about it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of pressure. Oftentimes I'm in my pajamas working out, or am I right in my bedroom? Like it's not this whole pomp and circumstance of, or checking in with other people or competing with other people, or, and it feels really, really good. And I agree, this is a growing sort of trend, but the voices from the other way of doing fitness are just so much louder.
So loud, yeah.
So much louder, and they're so much more prevalent. And it's the societally acceptable way of seeking fitness, is to do it hard, to go really hard, to overdo it, and to shout about it. And, we're just a lot quieter over here, but I think this is definitely the path that leads to more lasting and fulfilling change.
Yeah, but if you look at the influencers who are propagating intensity as the solution to all of life's woes, what do? They show their lifestyle, they show their body, they show the intensity of their workouts, and people become attracted to that, thinking, I want that life, right? Because the value of our society is have a good body, have a lot of money, have a lot of success, right? Have a lot of, if you're a woman, show up for everyone else around you and get praised for all the things that you do for others, right? And if we believe that that is the most important value, then we will always put that on a pedestal, right? But if we pause for a second and take a moment to realize that a lot of people are talking about this from a place of teaching you to hate on yourself, teaching you like you're not disciplined enough, you're not hardcore enough, you're not unkind to yourself enough, right? If you realize that what they're ultimately doing is they are making people feel worse about themselves. Now, that's the opposite of what I just said. I want to realign the values of society towards how much of a positive impact can you make on the people around you. And I want to say something clear. That includes you. That includes you.
100%.
So if you're able to approach your fitness routine by saying, I deeply value taking care of myself because I want to live and be able to move freely for as long as possible because I want to enjoy my life as much as I can. If that's your honest truth, then you will not be attracted to those influencers who are pushing themselves to the limits. Have you ever seen bodybuilders and they're like 60s, 70s, 80s? A lot of these people are destroyed. They're completely destroyed because they wore out their joints. They hurt themselves so many times throughout their careers in the gym. And it doesn't really propagate towards true longevity. Okay. And I want to demystify something here that's really important because in the world of fitness, most people think of it as energy expenditure, right? It's like if you're doing cardio, it's like how far can you go? How fast can you go, right? How much can you elevate your heart rate? If you're doing muscle building, it's like all the way to failure, as hard to failure as you possibly can, be as sore as possible. That means you're tearing your muscles down as much as possible. And in both of those modalities, you're not focusing on the attributes that actually allow someone to live a long, healthy, happy life. And in WeShape, we kind of boil those attributes down into four simple things: strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination. And here's what's really cool. You don't have to do balance work by itself and strength work by itself and flexibility work by itself and coordination work. If you pick the right movements to practice, you can actually do all of those things at the same time.
Absolutely.
And what's really cool is this, okay? This is where I get really excited. If you look at the highest level bodybuilders in the world, right? The people winning like the Mr. Olympias and Mr. Universe and stuff like that. What you'll discover is they're not that strong compared to other people who are strength athletes who do things a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use a direct example here. Olympic weightlifting has been one of the most popular strength sports for the last 100 or so years. It's still in the Olympics, and it is one of the most challenging sports in terms of developing strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination, and speed. There's a lot of things that are associated with it. But what I find really interesting is that people would automatically assume that the strongest people in the world are the people who go to the limits and push themselves intensely, or, you know, like go to failure all the time and like are constantly doing that. What you actually find out that you discover is they take huge rest periods between sets. They lift at sub-maximal percentages and focus on quality of movement, not how much they can lift. And they have very precise schedules where they're leading up to that max lift. But the entire time they're doing that, they're trying to avoid failure, because failure and not being able to go any further on your workouts is actually you slipping into bad motor pattern recruitment. And what that means is you're doing squats or you're running or something like that. Once you tip over the edge where you no longer have control over your nervous system, you're running poorly and more poorly and more poorly. You're basically grooving in bad form, and it's going to cause injuries in the future or now, right? And so I think people need to understand this, because you can actually do softer fitness, where you take more rest, where you focus more on the quality of the movement, and actually get further in terms of your strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination than someone who's focused on purely intensity and purely doing things this old-fashioned way as it relates to things like bodybuilding or things like CrossFit. That's all about how intensely can you do this, right?
I think the difference there, especially when you talk about bodybuilders, and we've talked about this before. My dad was a competitive bodybuilder. He won Mr. Michigan in 1989 for the lightweight division. So I saw up close what it took to achieve his aesthetic physical goals. That is the key. It was aesthetics.
Yeah.
That he wasn't in a strongman competition.
It didn't matter how his body felt.
It didn't matter how his body felt. It didn't matter how strong he was, how flexible he was. They weren't testing that. He was on stage, a baby oiled up, to be looked at. That was the competition. It was not about
what you can do.
What you could do.
Yeah.
And the people that you're speaking of with a different routine, they don't look like bodybuilders oftentimes.
No.
They are not chiseled to perfection.
No.
You know,
they don't care.
They don't care, because that is not the goal. And that's, you know, I say that, obviously I grew up around the bodybuilder community. I was next door neighbors with five-time Miss Olympia. So I respect these people, because I know what they do is hard work, but it is not fitness. It is not health. It is aesthetics. It is an aesthetics competition.
Yeah.
I watched them undereat. I watched them over-exercise. And the point was, how can we trick it's like when boxers need to make weight. It's like, I'm just going to go dehydrate myself. You know what I mean? It's not for the benefit of the body long term. It is literally to achieve a short-term goal. And for whatever reason, because we're so, I don't know, enamored by the way these people look, we have allowed that sort of routine to take over what health and fitness is. And it's just not.
You said,
they're not the same.
I just want to pause you, because you were like, you just nailed it on the head. When you're doing what people think of as fitness right now, if you're doing machines or free weights or even body weight movements to your limit, to the limit where you're failing on that last rep, and if you're out there and you're doing cardiovascular stuff where you're failing on those last little while, you're feeling like you can't even maintain your form anymore, that is not for health. That is not for health. That is not for longevity. And yet, it's our perception that is the way that we need to do things for longevity. What's even crazier, as a man, when we see these huge bodybuilders, we don't even realize that by carrying so much muscle mass on your body, you are shaving years off your life. So this is not just you know, aesthetics and not health. This is the opposite of health.
Right.
You're actually hurting yourself in the long run, especially when we ignore things like injuries. It's the whole no pain, no gain, you know, like we have to get rid of that, because it's not serving anybody. And luckily, the voice is changing. You know, you have people talking about soft health. You have people looking at programs that are just insane these days and saying, like, why are people doing this to themselves, right? It's not even sustainable.
About one in particular?
It's about or Schmashmit. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of programs out there that I just don't see serving people in any way. And what's beautiful, though, is you do have people, even big influencers. Like another one I think of is Dr. Peter Attia is focusing mainly on what do you need to be able to do with your body physically quickly to have as much longevity as possible? And what does that look like to make sure that you're doing it well so that you don't end up causing a problem in the process, right? Because let's get real. Exercise causes injuries.
Yes.
It is one of the most common reasons people hurt themselves is by starting a new fitness routine. And my belief is that the reason why is because we focus on how much we can do, not how well we can do it. And if we peel back the layers and we start by not building our house on sand, right? This is what most people do. They go out there and they have their house built on sand and they say, how fast can I build more on this, right? Instead, what we got to do is we got to peel back. We got to take steps backwards and we got to start much slower and smaller than we think we need to. And we need to rebuild quality movement, which is a strong foundation. And then we can build what we want to build on top of that. From there. Right? Absolutely. And that's a humbling experience, though. Like in my own life, I've been an ego lifter. I've been somebody who wanted to lift the most and do these things. And almost every time that happens, I end up hurting myself. And over time, I started realizing like, wow, sometimes you've got to take like 5 steps back when you think you need to take 1. And that's something we tell people in WeShape. I don't know about you, but on live calls all the time, someone will come in, they'll have an injury. How quickly can I get back to this? And I say, well, you're asking the wrong questions. First of all, give yourself grace, rest. And then second of all, I want you to go all the way back down to square one, right? And then I want you to build the skills necessary to slowly make progress through these motor pattern progressions that we have. And by the time you get back to where you were, I hope that you're doing the move you were doing with so much more skill. And this actually, this concept is something I've been doing for a long time, but I heard a story about this Olympic gymnast who was one of the first people to pull a move off called a Victorian. Do you know what this is?
No.
Okay, so on the rings, you can imagine if somebody's doing an iron cross on the rings. Now imagine if they lifted their whole body with their back parallel to the ground. So they're like basically like looks like they're lying down in bed, but their arms are straight and they're holding themselves like this. One of the first people to be able to pull that move off. And this person, whenever they would get to a level that was kind of near there, but they couldn't quite do it, instead of going one level back, they would go all the way back to the very first movement that they learned in that gymnastic progression, which is something that probably kids are doing, right? And they would spend a month on that, and then a month on the next one, and a month on the next one. And that person believed that they missed something along the way. And so if I can go back to the very beginning and say, how do I do this even better? Again, quality. And then the next step, even better. And the next step, even better. And then by the time you arrive back at the top, you've fixed the tiny little things that you weren't properly doing that were preventing you from doing something that was absolute world class. I think people ignore how valuable it is to go slow at first, to go long in the long run. Right? Like I've done that so many times. You know, I'm going to recover in 3 months, right? Nothing happens. Okay, hang on. I'm going to give myself 2 years. And that means for the first quarter, I'm just going to do this simple thing. The next quarter, I'm going to do this thing. The next quarter, I'm going to do this thing. And then all of a sudden, wow, I'm further than I ever thought because I was patient enough to really make sure I'm doing things the right way. It's scary, though, because you feel like you're not doing enough. That's a big thing we have to tackle for sure.
You feel like you're not doing enough. You feel like you need to work harder. You feel like everyone around you is surpassing you. You know, I can remember, you know, for me, my sort of fitness, I don't even know, I wouldn't call it kryptonite, but the thing that was big for me is I loved running. I really enjoyed it. It was a sort of meditative experience when I started it, but then it became a competition situation, and then it became about keeping my body a certain way. So I would almost enjoy the movement and enjoy the running less because I wasn't seeing my body respond the way I wanted, or I wasn't, you know, lapping people or winning the race, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So it was almost like the joy was stripped away from a very cool way to move because it wasn't serving me aesthetically or giving me that, you know, validation I wanted. And it's sad, you know, when you lose something like that because it was something that I felt like brought me closer to myself until all the noise around me allowed me to make it something different. And then when I was ready to get back into it, my joints were like, no, ma'am. So having to walk away from that, very humbling experience. But, you know, I appreciate the growth and the process, you know, going through that because now I have a level of contentment with fitness and with movement that just feels safer. You know, even though the voices are still around you saying like, go hard or go home, never miss a Monday. What are you doing? That's too easy. Stretching doesn't count as a workout. Walking doesn't count as a workout. And it's like, Okay, if you think so, but I know
count.
stretching doesn't. Yeah, I mean that honestly, the stretching as a workout thing. I know as a physical therapist, you're talking about people injuring themselves. You know that is my job security. People start new fitness programs, they hurt themselves, and they call me, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. So it's cool, but that whole concept of like, you can do less to gain more, and stretching being so big. Like, people have no idea how important it is to stretch, but people literally think stretching is optional.
Right.
Like, they really like, oh, I'll stretch later.
And even the people who are carving out hours in their week for fitness and things like that, it's like I do a cool down maybe, right? Like
30 seconds.
30 seconds of 5 stretches and then go walk for like 10 minutes or something, right?
What is wrong? So really, learning that in my personal life, I did learn it probably earlier than most people as being a physical therapist, but learning it and then applying it and seeing how significant it is as I age.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how people function without stretching.
Fact.
I don't know how are you not in pain all the time? I don't know what's going on, but people don't understand the value of stretching. And that, again, sort of aligns with this soft core fitness and this idea that, like, I tell people all the time, your muscle is only as strong as it is flexible.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how big and juicy it looks and bulky or whatever, how good your bicep looks in your t-shirt. If you need to reach something real fast and all of a sudden it snaps, it's not serving you,
Yeah.
So flexibility, like you said, with WeShape, the focus, having so much to do with coordination, balance, flexibility, and strength. Like, that is really the key to living a long life, with what we can do within our control, right?
Yeah.
We only have so much control, but addressing those things are so significant. And in my work, I see it every single day. One fall, one bone break, one issue with the balance. People lose the strategies in their ankles to prevent a fall. They don't have that co-contraction in their ankles, their knees, their hips. They can't prevent a fall.
I love the word you just used. You said they lose the strategies in their ankles.
Yes.
Because, like what you're saying, you stuff yourself in shoes, you don't do any balance work.
100%.
And then a little slip happens. And 20 years ago, when your ankles had more mobility and strength, you had more strategy and tools available to catch yourself.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you don't. And you fall. And that's the number one reason why people go on a downward spiral of
100%.
injuries and not being able to get back to their former selves.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, after a certain age, and especially for women, the sequelae toward death is 80% higher.
It's high.
It's
so
like
high.
really, really high.
Like shockingly high.
Shockingly high. So it's so important to reconfigure your ideas around health and fitness and really make them about health and fitness. Like, that's really where we have to start.
How long are you going to live? And what can you do with your body while it feels good?
Yes.
While it doesn't feel bad.
If we could just let go of this idea that aesthetics has anything to do with health.
Yeah.
Like, if we could just stop saying it. Like, don't see a muscular or thin person and say, you look so healthy. You have no idea of their health, right? Yeah. We don't live inside their bodies. We don't know their labs or whatever. So just letting go of this idea that health and aesthetics are the same will be the beginning of you optimizing your health and fitness and doing it from a place that's probably way more soft than you ever would have expected, but far more effective in giving you the life that you really, really desire. Because you can work on aesthetics. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your choice. But it's never going to give you what you really think it's going to give you. You're never going to get the validation you really, really want, because that's usually what we're seeking. And even if you do, it's going to be fleeting and temporary. You're not going to be happy in the long run, and you're not going to have the benefits of health because you haven't spent any time actually curating good health.
Yeah. Speaking on the subject of your aesthetics not equaling health, something happened in my life in the last 6 months that was really pretty shocking. And it's one of my closest friends who is you'd see him and think of him as epitome of health. He's in his 40s, got abs. He's kicks butt and working out hard and everything. And then lo and behold, goes in for a checkup and finds out he has cancer. Right. And I know that aesthetics and health are not related, but when you have experiences like that in your own life, you start to realize how true that really is. Right. And I think there's a lot of people out there that probably have a body that they somewhat appreciate or think is the healthy body for them. And it's really easy to be judgmental on people for being in bigger bodies or vice versa, jealous of people in smaller bodies. And it's just really important to know that they are not connected. They are not connected. You can be in any type of body and you can get any type of disease, and you could take incredible care of yourself and get something, and you could take poor care of yourself and get something, and vice versa. And so I think it's really important that we do the best we can to show up for ourselves, regardless of where we're at and regardless of how we look. And we let go of that reality we think it is, which is, if I'm skinny, I'll be healthy.
Right.
If I have a great body, then that means I'm healthy. Right. I think it's just so important because, I think so many of us still hold that bias, but,
we do.
There's, again, when something like that happens in your life, you're like, wow, like no more obvious way could be presented to me to make sure that I know this is fully true.
And that happens so much more than we realize or acknowledge, right? There's so many variances to health that literally have no direct correlation with the size of our bodies.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. There's so many things that can happen to us that, getting in our macros and our protein have no impact on. That's just the reality of it, and it's sad and it's scary. And this isn't, for you to live in fear around this thought, but it's just to understand and accept your lack of control in some regard. We can only do so much. We should do what is within our power, but then sometimes we're going to have seasons where we're not even doing that. Yeah. And that's okay too, right? We have to hold a lot of compassion. I think that's the other aspect of this soft core fitness, is holding more compassion for yourself and more grace and giving yourself more space and not being so mean to yourself all the time. Yeah. It's like you didn't do anything to create every disease or condition or issue you have in your life. And even if you didn't do something or did do something that contributed to it, you're not an awful person for that. We're all just doing the best that we can with what we have, at any given point. So you have to let it go, and you have to be willing to just accept what is, do what's within your power, and accept the times when you're not, and just offer yourself a lot of space and grace, the same way you would a friend, right? Yeah. You wouldn't slap your friend over the head and say, you suck, you're not doing enough. Like that. That's not how we treat other people. And so we shouldn't treat ourselves that way. And I know that there are a lot of people, and I will say particularly men that I engage with, that really believe in this concept of that negative reinforcement, that you're being a bitch, suck it up. It's like, whoa, I get you think you're strong enough to manage that, but I don't think that is speaking to your soul or giving the positive impact that you want long term from that. Yeah. So soften up a little. There's nothing wrong with being soft, even for guys. Soften up a little bit and utilize a more kind approach when you're trying to sort of motivate or inspire yourself to do something great. That whole concept of let me just beat the shit out of myself and I'll get it together. I need to kick my own ass. Why? Yeah. Why?
It's just reinforcing negative perception of self.
Yeah.
And, for some people, very small percentage of the people, that gets them to the dream of society, right? The success and the body.
Right.
And for most people, they just wake up beating themselves up and then end up living a life where they hate themselves.
Yeah.
Right? That's the reality.
A lot of therapy to undo that.
People need to realize that. And I thought about this a lot as we built WeShape and talked about this, because I was like, what do you mean self-hatred doesn't produce results? I got the body I wanted and I got the success I wanted fueled through self-hatred.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. It's like the 1 in 10,000 or the 1 in 100,000 people that are so good at hating themselves enough that it drives them to do it, that get that material success or that external success that people want. And the rest of the people just use that as a tool to compare themselves against and feel bad about themselves and ultimately treat themselves that way.
Yeah.
Right? And they end up stuck in their own self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, I'm not enough because I'm not like them.
And even the person who got it
is still miserable.
They're still
miserable.
Yes. So it's we don't have an example of using self-hatred and self-loathing and just meanness to yourself to get you the thing and fulfill you internally, emotionally, spiritually. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's happened for.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there was a big shift in the way they treated themselves later on, right? Yeah. But it doesn't work that way. I tell people all the time, beautiful things don't grow from seeds of shame and hate. You don't plant seeds of shame and hate and get this beautiful plant. That's not how it works. It's not what we feed ourselves, it impacts us at a like internal deep level, and it impacts how we show up in the world, how we feel about ourselves, and how we're able to even engage with other people. It changes our ability to connect. It's hard to hate yourself and really love on other people in your life. Yeah. Really hard. Yeah. You can try. You can fake it. You can mask it.
Have a tough time developing great relationships.
It's so hard because you don't even think you're worthy of them.
Yeah. And you won't have them because of it. Yeah. Well, before we wrap this episode, we've been talking a lot about what people are experiencing and how we can unwind that in this new trend of treating yourself differently. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure people understand that this does not mean you should sit on your phone on TikTok for an hour a day and not go move your body and stretch and do something kind to yourself. Instead, it's really, instead of showing up and trying to change your body and the way you look and coming from that place, it's waking up each day and saying, how can I take care of myself, right? How can I show up and take care of my body today? And I think that people need to start reframing the way that they're approaching fitness in terms of the time involved, in terms of like the equipment and all these different things that they think they need to have, and realize that if you really want to take care of your body and become fit and strong, you can do this at your house. Yeah. You don't need to join a gym. You don't need to go anywhere. All you got to do is pick a handful of stretches that feel like the right stretches for your body. Find the areas where you're tight and just focus on just a few stretches. Yeah. Do them every day as much as you can. Integrate them throughout your day. That's the easiest way to get volume on stretching, is just do a stretch for a minute here, a stretch for a minute there. Yeah. And you will be shocked at how much of an impact that will make on your flexibility very quickly. And then if you want to gain some strength and you want to work on some other things, you can pick some other movements and do some movement snacks throughout the day, or you can pick a workout routine and do short workouts. Just do whatever feels right for your body. Yeah. And over time, that consistency of showing up for yourself as an act of self-care, that will not only make your body feel better, and along the way, you never had to push yourself to the extreme unless you had excess energy and you were like, I got to get this energy out, right? It's important to just listen to what you need that day. But you'll also feel better about yourself because you're not consistently rehearsing this negative feedback loop of, I suck, so I should push myself to go do this thing. Yeah,
Yeah. And shameless plug, you can get all that with WeShape.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa.
So like literally just
you made me not have to do the shameless plug this time.
I'm happy to do the shameless plug because I see our members every week and how impacted they are by things that seemingly are like easy or small or simple. Yeah. And like, oh no, it takes your whole like health and sense of fitness and health and wellness to a whole new level. So you don't need any like crazy restrictive diets. You don't need any ridiculously challenging, hard workouts. You just need to practice something consistently that is going to enhance the quality of your life by enhancing the quality of your movements in your body.
I thank you for saying that. And I think it's so big because when we get on these calls, probably the most common thing I say is like, hey, you're just starting. Scale down, do less, and just show up consistently for that. If you finished your workout and you're thinking to yourself, wow, that was so easy, I've got plenty more in me, then you're right on track. Yeah. If you finish your workout and you're like, oh man, that was hard, too much. Yeah. It's not the day for that. Yeah. Let's start and build that strong foundation. And over the course of months and years, not days and weeks, months and years, you will absolutely change the way that you feel in your body, what you're capable of doing with your body, and you'll be doing what's important to you, what is the purpose of everybody's fitness journey in the first place. You'll be improving your health. Yeah. You'll be improving your health. You'll be focused on your health.
That's what matters.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode. I hope you all give yourself a lot more grace when it comes to the way society keeps teaching us to push ourselves to the limits, and start showing up for yourself from a much different place. And embrace the fact that you can live a little slower, go do things a little bit softer, and start showing up for yourself to care for your body instead of trying to change it. You don't need to change. You got everything you already need.
Exactly.